What's up, humans? My name is David, and I help people develop self-awareness and self-compassion. And today, we're talking about hedgehogs climbing trees. Hey, welcome back to another Blue Chair Talk, and this is another one on the differences between our brain hemispheres. And it's going to be a great one. We are talking about arrogance on the one side and curiosity on the other. And as you can tell by those two terms, by that contrast, what we're kind of talking about is our relationship to knowledge, or how we think and feel about what it is we do know and what we don't know. On the one hand, curiosity, which if you've watched maybe any of these videos so far, it's probably not a surprise. Curiosity is more the domain of the right hemisphere, the big picture hemisphere, the open awareness and sort of vigilance about our surroundings hemisphere. This is the one much more characterized by curiosity and openness to what is new. We already talked about that predilection for what is new in a previous video. Well, this implies, curiosity, that is, implies that there's something we may not yet know, right? This is, I would maybe even say, an epistemological humility. Epistemology is just sort of the study of knowing, how we know what is knowable, etc., etc. Very nerdy philosophical stuff, but I sort of love it. The study of knowing stuff and then plus humility. Feel like we need a bit more of that in our world these days. Lots of people sharing their opinions quite freely and with epic certainty, which brings me to my next term, arrogance. Now, on the one hand, sometimes we can call someone arrogant for, just being super into themselves, or maybe just very overly opinionated about stuff that we don't feel like is important, minutia. I'm sure people have felt that I am arrogant about coffee or beer, and they are probably accurate, probably correct in that. I definitely have had my snobby moments, true confessions. So arrogance is something that characterizes, in general, the left hemisphere. And remember, that is the hemisphere that is control of, for most people, their dominant hand. And so it is about control and certainty and very clear boundaries around things, which is not bad. This is not evil. This is something that we definitely need if we're going to make use of anything, right? Any kind of tool that we're going to grasp and use, or even mental concepts that we are going to use to navigate our way through the world. So important, so good at certain things, but not great at being the dominant force in our lives, which, again, back to what I was saying, it feels like arrogance and this sort of certainty about what we know, despite maybe really lack of evidence for our claims, that seems to be very prevalent these days. So this is, maybe you can tell, something that I feel very passionate about, people learning about their hemispheres, that within each of us, not just arrogant beer snobs or certain politicians you may be currently thinking of, each of us can take it upon ourselves, embark on this journey of deepening our self-awareness and indeed our self-compassion when it comes to our relationship to knowledge. We can nurture this sort of humility about what we do and what we don't know. Really, if you take a little bit of time and start to think about it, how much of what you feel like you know with relative confidence, some confidence, how much of that did you do the research on? Did you actually go and figure out and really sort of get to the bottom of it, as opposed to general knowledge, received knowledge, so much of the time what it is someone who feels trustworthy to us. They are claiming it with a lot of certainty, and that gives us a certain certainty about it. Now, certainty is not always arrogance, and so to kind of wrap up the description of the left hemisphere's approach to knowledge, but to a lot of other things as well, we're describing it as arrogant. What this implies, kind of the flip side of curiosity implying that there's something we don't know, what an arrogant posture seems to be implying is that we know everything. Now, very few of us are going to make that claim, and also it's not necessarily that we can, it's not necessarily a given that we can sort of introspect, sort of take some time to work on ourselves and suddenly realize like, oh wow, I thought I knew everything and now I realize I don't know everything, right? This is not, it's too extreme of a description to be recognizable in our life. But here is a way to kind of slightly different angle on this arrogance, that left hemisphere posture towards knowing. This arrogance is actually more an implication that what we do know is the only important stuff, and whatever we don't know or aren't totally sure about, that stuff just doesn't matter. It's unimportant. And my friends, if you start to look for that tendency within you, boy oh boy, I'll just speak at least for myself and say that as I started to think about that and try to find that in my own life, embarrassingly, it's everywhere. This tendency to feel like what we do know is the important stuff, that's what counts and makes us right. And sure, there's stuff we don't know, but whatever we don't know is probably the unimportant stuff. And of course, sort of the antidote, the counterbalance to that is some humility, some epistemological humility, some sort of owning. Yes, first admitting, but then owning and taking it into ourselves that I bet there's a lot I don't know. And adopting a disposition, a sort of inclination towards the world of curiosity. Yes, there is such a thing as too much open-mindedness, and there is such a thing as a sort of dysfunctional lack of certainty, right? Those are real things, but generally speaking, within the, fairly healthy population of the world, we all have both of these within us. There are certain ways of being that are going to promote a sort of undue self-assurance and arrogance about our knowledge, or many other things like our abilities. And there are other ways of being in the world, ways of cultivating attention and awareness and tending to our own feelings that can lead to openness and curiosity. So, like I said, I'm very excited about this, and of course, the invitation this week for you is to try and start noticing that, try and start bringing in more curiosity to the places where maybe you're frustrated or you would describe yourself as passionately opinionated, which actually entails also a little layer of anger, maybe. Those are the places where our left hemisphere is coming in with the vice grips of certainty, and it's maybe leaning towards arrogance. Let's develop some curiosity there. And we can start right now. We're going to shift to our meditation time here. As I do kind of every week, it's about 10 minutes or so of chatting about self-awareness and self-compassion, and then followed up by about 10 minutes of meditation, to some extent putting it into practice. So if you're in a calm enough place, if you're in a good place right now, go ahead and settle in and go ahead and close your eyes to begin with. Some weeks I do a lot of talking and practically philosophizing during the meditation time. This week we're really back to basics because focusing on the breath and then almost inevitably becoming distracted and returning our attention to focus on the sensations of the breath. This is the crux of this practice here, this arrogant dismissal of our attention, because every breath can feel the same. And that definitely is our left hemisphere's attitude towards it. It's just breath. I understand, I know. Let's move on, find something more interesting. But the antidote is curiosity, and then more curiosity, and a little smile, and some more curiosity. Remember, at any point, if you realize you've become distracted, however briefly or for however long it was, in that very moment, nothing else matters besides gently, compassionately bringing your attention back and investing it in investigating the breath. We can get frustrated by how long the distraction was, or how frequently, or maybe we get distracted. Maybe we get frustrated with the distraction itself. Maybe it's the sound of kids playing or a car driving by. This is very, very normal. Whatever is the case, just come back to the breath. just come back to the breath. Start again as if this were the very first moment of meditation. So much of our mind's activity effectively drives us away from being fully present in the moment, to the moment, in the here and now. We'll talk a bit more about that next week, but curiosity really is the strongest antidote. Just observe what is happening, including in your mind. It's our sort of arrogant, narrow spotlight of attention that wants to hop from one thing to the next, searching for most of the time we don't even know what. The brain just keeps serving up thought after thought, opinion after opinion, instead of just being. There is a deep, beautiful contentment available in this very moment. As we wrap up for today, just a quick reminder, the invitation this week is to bring in the curiosity and allow it to slowly dismantle where your certainty might have created, maybe we could say, strongholds. Allow it to bring you in contact with your own unknowing. It's a very, very helpful practice. All right. Next week, another one on the hemispheres. So many because so interesting, at least for me. I hope for you as well. If you found it interesting, definitely feel free to share this with your friends and family, anyone you think would find this interesting or who is on their journey intentionally trying to develop self-awareness and self-compassion. This is a good one for the self-compassion. Okay. All right. Until next week, know your mind, love your life. You know, this is a problem with unscripted videos. Sometimes you just totally space on one of your main plot points. This week, I opened by saying that we're going to do a talk on hedgehogs climbing trees, which I thought would be such a great opener to kind of pull you in, and then that's what I forgot to explain. Awesome. So I'm going to explain it. That has to do with one of the many studies that have been done on the differences between the two hemispheres. And here's kind of how it went. The scientists presented a syllogism to these participants, study participants who had hemispherical damage on one side versus the other. And just in case you don't know what a syllogism is, it's a bit of a silly word, but a syllogism is a logical progression of three statements. So, for example, all mammals are animals. That would be statement one. Statement two, elephants are mammals. Therefore, it follows logically in statement three that elephants are animals. So the third one is always kind of supposed to refer back to the first one, I think. And anyway, you can tell this is sort of a very basic logic definition thing. Check this out. In the case of people who have right hemisphere damage, that's the big picture hemisphere, they're relying more on their left hemisphere, so it becomes more dominant. And the left hemisphere, right, is about the control and arrogant self-certainty in this particular instance. That's what we're most interested in. And they are presented with a faulty syllogism, one that doesn't work. And the example that is given is line one, all hedgehogs can climb trees. Is that what it is? Hold on, let me double check. No, I got it. Okay. I don't have arrogant self-certainty going on today, I'll tell you that much. Okay. Major premise, the first part of it is all monkeys climb trees. Second line, porcupines are monkeys. Third line, porcupines climb trees. So, to you and I, the issue there is probably glaringly obvious, but for these people who have right hemisphere brain damage, which would be more bigger picture stuff, right? Context, all of that. They're relying on their left hemisphere, who arrogantly ignores that there is an issue there and says that the logical progression makes sense. And you ask them and they say, nope, that makes perfect sense. And you say, but porcupines aren't monkeys. And they say, well, look, it says it right here. Porcupines are monkeys, so I don't know what to tell you. This is a very logical syllogism, and thumbs up to that. And they just can't recognize that there's an issue there in sort of the real world application of that, right? If we were to put it back in context. But out of context, the left hemisphere just loves the self-contained logic of that three-line syllogism format, and it just goes, yup, that's right. So that was the example, and the extra little hilarious tidbit is that it turns out that there actually is like a breed of hedgehogs that can climb trees. So hilariously, they're actually right in some cases. Anyway, I love that story, and I hope you do too. And please, if you have not checked this book out, if this is the kind of stuff that interests you, you gotta check it out. It is phenomenally good. Pretty much life-changing. All right. As I like to say, know your mind, love your life.